Once the tracking is done on it, there's not a whole lot of other work that we need to really do. It's just a matter of replacing those items, making sure they work, and then animating them coming in and off the screen. That part is pretty simple. The tracking is just, it's not difficult, it's just tedious to go through and just make sure that it looks like it's nice and fluid. Because of how she's moving, her hand kind of just goes like in this linear fashion. If it moves up or down and it's like jittery, obviously we can just delete the jittery and it'll still feel like she's moving it. It doesn't have to match her hand perfectly like if it was a finger press that we would see the front of her finger and it's moving this way. We have some leniency here, okay? So it shouldn't be too bad as long as we get into it. So we'll be 2D tracking the hand movement, matching the movement of new items to those tracked items, being able to work between Photoshop, After Effects, Illustrator, or 3D. You can use any two of these things. I'm going to show that today. Animating items coming in and out, and then adding appropriate finishing techniques, noise, blurs, glows, vignettes, color grading, and then organizing all of your stuff. Okay, same thing that we will always do for every assignment. Make sure. Turn-ins, we'll turn in a movie with the tracked items and animations. The end result will be 1280 by 720 at 30 frames per second, and we will turn a snapshot of our node graph worth 12 points. Questions on the sheet? All right, so the sheets will be in the folder. You can copy it afterwards, okay? So I'm not going to show you every single one of these doing it, but the process is going to be very much the same regardless of what you do for each one of these things. Oops. Scoot that over. Okay, so at some point you should have all of your stuff tracked. This is all of my items tracked. Each one of these is the tracked one, that card 3D, and it being merged into that list. Okay, so this is one item, this is another item, this is another item, another item, and another item. Okay, once you have that, you may have something like this green solid that I used. To replace it, it literally is just replacing that green solid with whatever it is you want. So, for instance, let's just detach this, this, and this. So I just detached my green solid. I have a piece of paper here that I found. This is a book. I went textures.com right here. I brought this image into Nuke. I just downloaded it, brought it in. This has a alpha channel on it already, so there's transparency that goes around it. When I was in here, you see the checkerboard, it grabs the one with the checkerboard with the transparency, okay? So I can use that image straight away like that. If it didn't, I would have to cut it out so I wouldn't see that box that goes around it too. I didn't want both pages, okay? I'll delete all this other stuff down here, or just disable it for a second just so you can see what it's going to look like. But all I have to do is take this arrow here for the card, drag it to that book, and now that book is floating in here and now will interact as she moves her hand right there, I believe. Nope, next one. There it is. Okay, it just slides in. That's all that I had to do, was just replace that green solid with whatever it was. Now, I didn't want the rest of it. I didn't want this other page. I didn't want 2 pages there. I could have gone into Photoshop and just deleted half of this image and just saved it as a ping, because that's what it downloaded as, and it would have been fine. I wanted to do it inside Nuke just so I could show you how to do it inside Nuke. So when you have an image like this and you want to cut it off, it's reading an alpha channel, it's reading transparency. So basically what I want to do is, on this side of the book, I want the transparency of the alpha channel to be black. That way when it's cut off, it'll just read that as transparent also. So I added a roto node, and the roto node is just this side here. That's all it is, okay? I'll delete it so you can see me make it. That's not it. I hit O, our hotkey test, right? O is roto. I go over here to my shapes. You can use the Bezier, you can use the rectangle, whichever one makes you happier. Draw the shape. If I hit A, I can see that it did not color it black, it colored it white, because the default is to add to the alpha channel, not take away from it. So I come over here to the color, and I just slide this alpha to black, and now it's black, and now it's gone. And so now I'm going to add a pre-mult. Oops. I'm going to hit A up here so we can get this back. There we go. I'm going to add a pre-mult, and that will cut it off, so now that is actually gone. And then the default size of this has not been changed. It's still the same resolution. So if I were to take this and put it on my image, it would track with this like half empty area, and I don't want that. I want my page to be my whole thing. So I then used a crop node to then be able to go in here and just go like this. I don't need to get it perfectly there, just close enough. And then I'm going to say reformat, and now it reformats that to this one. Now, you might say, well, this is an awful lot of work for this page. I literally could have just gone into Photoshop, just cut it, and then be done. But if I had, let's say, 3 or 4 or 5 pages here, all I have to do is change the roto, change the crop, and now I have the next page. I don't have to worry about bringing in 5 different images for each one of these. I can simply just move stuff around inside of here, which is what I planned on doing. Cool. So now I just connect this to that crop. I'm going to delete these. And now there it is. Now it's huge. I could go to the card and scale it down, but I ended up just adding a transform right on top of this and scaling it down to, I think, 0.5 or something. 0.6 looks good. There we go. Yep. And if the text was backwards or something, I could flip it. Now, I can take this whole setup, because like I said, I wanted that other section of this. Copy it. I'm going to paste it here. Drag this into the mix. And then I'm just going to go through and just move stuff around. So I'm going to look at the roto, and I'm hitting 1. Every time I go to that, I'm just hitting 1 to get to that roto, or to get to that viewer. And then I go to my crop, and I move the crop over. There we go. And so now this one is all set up. There's that page. And if I go to the next one, there's that page. So you can see very easily I can just do stuff like this all within here, not going into Photoshop. So definitely a possibility. Now each one of these things should be animated onto the screen. We should not see them all just kind of floating there because it's kind of a mess to see that. So what we want to do is we want to time it so that as our hand approaches it, it starts to like light up, like the visibility comes, and then she hits it, and then she slides it over, and then when she lets go, it goes away, okay? Some items you may want to stay there, like mine, I'm going to keep this folder there, and just as she drags up into that folder, it'll go. But everything else I'm just going to have disappear, I think. So I'm going to animate that. So first I'm going to just organize my stuff. Just drop this here. This here, this here. That goes under there. All right, so I'm just organizing this a little bit. Oops. Just ignore the stuff on the right side. Okay, so where I have this merge, that's where these items are coming into the scene. So if I take this mix down and up, you can see how that then turns this basically off and on. So that's what I'm going to be animating to get this thing to look like it's coming on and off the screen. So I'm going to go to where she's about touching this one, which is over here. Way off. Where is that one at? There it is. All right. It's not really an appropriate one for that one. Let me go to the next one. Okay, that one's good there. And then the next one right there. All right, that's the one I want. So I'm just going to disconnect. Oops, not disconnect that. Disconnect this one. And I believe it's this one, maybe? We'll find out. Nope. It was that one, I just wasn't viewing it. There we go. Cool. Okay. So I'm going to make sure I only have this merge showing so it's very easy to see which one I need to adjust. I'm going to go before she, let me see it on the screen. There it is. Okay, so she's on her way to hitting it, so I'm going to set it to 0 and just set a key. Use the arrow keys, go up a couple frames, crank it up to whatever you want. It doesn't have to go up to 1, but it definitely should go so that we can see it, you know, not like that. So maybe something like this, like 0.75. Nuke is auto key, so we don't need to worry about setting keyframes here. It just automatically does it. And then I'm going to go until she moves it across. There it goes. And then as it gets into this folder, I'm going to set a key, go up a frame, and then just turn it off. Okay, that way as she drops it in that area, it'll just disappear. So let's watch that thing move across the screen. Yes, that's the first one. There's the second one. Okay. There we go. Okay, so that's one. Now I could add also other stuff to this. I could add a glow. Oops. And because it's animating with the transparency or that merge coming on, that glow also animates as it comes onto the screen. So then it's just a matter of adjusting maybe some of the properties to get it to look the way I want it to look. Like that looks pretty cool like that. Versus this, which is kind of boring. That looks kind of cool. I like that. Bless you. Okay. So then I would just do this same process for any other item that I just drop in there and have it come in. If you're bringing something from Illustrator, you draw it out in Illustrator. If you export it as D drive, this, what class, there, tracking, image sequence, artwork, there we go. And I call this paper and say export. This is where I can specify if I want the background to be a color or if I just want it transparent. Typically you want this to be transparent. I hit OK. Whatever is on your document will be solid. So this is all one solid color here because this background layer has a solid color. The other ones are just lines. This, my desktop, my screen, all that is just transparent. So now when I go into Nuke and I go to read, I find that piece of paper, which is that. I hit open. If I view it, there's the piece of paper. And if I hit A, there's no alpha channel with this because it literally is the exact size of the document. Okay, so there's no transparency with this. If it was a weird size, I guess like that, let's say. Let's export this as paper 2. You'll be able to see the transparency here, and all those lines would be opaque. Okay, so with Illustrator, it automatically finds that transparency. With Photoshop, we have to build the transparency in or delete the background to build it in. It's nearly the same process. So new document. Same thing with Illustrator as far as what your document size is. Typically you want it to be in relation to what your item is. So if it's paper, I would have a vertical one versus a horizontal one. Okay, so whatever size you would need for that. Also looking at the amount of pixels that we would need on screen. For something like this, this document is 2048 pixels wide and 1000 pixels tall. This image here is not that big. It's only 300 pixels that are actually on the screen. Okay, and I'm looking at this XY here. So I don't need this to be 7,000 pixels. I don't need all the detail in the world because it's going to be shrunk down to only 300 pixels. So a good rule of thumb is to go double what you think you're going to need. If you're not sure, then do like 1200 by 1200 and then go from there. Make your stuff, crop it if you need to, and then you can adjust. So, hello. So there's that. Let's put that there. I'll make a shape. Oh, that's not the shapes. So I just have these as placeholders. If I save this out now, the background's on, it's going to come in as one complete solid image. If I delete the background, now it has transparency. So now when I save it as a ping, it'll come in with this transparency. I'm never in the right folder. There. Test image, and I'll save this as a ping. Save. Okay. Same process again, hit read, test image, open. If I hit 1, it shows me the image as is, but if I then pre-multiply it, it says, hey, take that alpha channel and apply it. Now we have transparency. And so now I could drop this onto something else. So just as a, for instance, I'll drop it onto here, and then preview what that looks like. There it is. Hello, hello, and then that. If I need this to be reversed, I can go to transform, go to my scale, and just make the width -1, and that flips it around. Obviously, it should be her direction, not my direction. Now also keep in mind of how small this is. If I were to put a whole bunch of text, like even on here, you can't read that, so it's not like crazy important. It's more important that you can see something there. Right, and then the final one where she grabs that and slides it over. Okay. The same thing would be for After Effects. If you rendered something from After Effects, oops, come on. You'd be able to bring that thing in as well. Just make sure you render it out as a sequence. If you render it out as a sequence, then you have that animation just like we had here. This was an animation or a video we brought in from After Effects as a sequence. That's how you would do it from After Effects. You could do the same thing from 3D. If you had a 3D animation, you could drop it in, or a 3D item, you could just drop it in the same way. Okay. If you wanted to swap between items, so here I have this folder and this folder. So I have these two different folders I want to swap. This one is the empty folder. This one is the full folder. So that as she brings the item and she drops into that thing, I want it to change to the other one. I took both of these items, I added a grade to it, and the grade, I changed the channel to alpha. And if I animate this gain, I'm basically controlling the alpha channel for both of those images. So I can control which one of those images will get shown. This image here, just so you can see this, oops, there it is, well, you can't see it very good, but it's 1588 pixels. This image is 1657 pixels. Whenever you put two images together and they're not the same size, one of those is going to win out, okay? So it's always best to make sure that your stuff coming together, like this kind of thing, are all reformatted the same way. So I have my file, I added that grade. That will allow me to change the alpha to 0 or 1 or whatever I need to. I then pre-multiplied it so it was actually transparent. And then I reformatted one of these to match the other one. So this one I just set the reformat to 1657. And it was actually just in the list. And then I just merged them together. So here's the merge where both of those come together. If I go to this grade and I take the gain down, you see that one goes away. If I go to this grade and take the gain up, you'll see that one comes back in. Okay? So very easily, if I want to switch between one folder or the other, I go back to this grade and just switch those numbers. Okay? So let's do that. I'm going to go into, here. I'm going to go to where she puts that file in there. So she pulls the folder off to the side. She grabs this file, and there it's going to go in. Okay? So at this point, before she puts it in there, it's going to be this file. So I'm going to go to this grade. I'm going to make sure that the alpha is up. Go to this grade, make sure the alpha is down. Set a key here. Go to this one. Set a key there. Go up a couple frames. And then just swap them. This one goes to 0, this one goes to 1. There we go. Okay, and then I need that piece of paper to go away, so now I'll go to that one. I'll say, okay, there's that piece of paper right here. I'll go to that merge. And the same spot that that went in there, that's where that's going to happen. So I'm going to go to this merge right here, verify that this is the correct one. It is. And I'm going to set a key at 0.8, scooch up a little bit, set it to 0. Yes, sir.
But having it like grow slightly, then shrink down.
You could do that too, right? Either way you want to do something like that, you could. I could have that as she's bringing it over, it's just scaling and getting smaller. And it would just be a matter of going to this transform and then just scaling that down. Definitely a possibility. And of course, that would have to be animated coming in too. If you get a setup that's working for you, as you bring stuff in, you're like, okay, I like how, like this one here. Close this, scoot up a bit. There it is. Does it have the glow on it? Yes, it does. Yep. I just a little bit slighter now. I'm going to pull that up a little bit more. Maybe I'll give this a color too. I think that might be kind of neat. I'm going to add a grade node in here and then just change the gain to give us a little bit like a bluish tint. So I just turned the green and red off and just gained on the blue. And so now it has a blue color. But if I like the way this is set up, I like these two things, I can copy those two things, go up to this one. Where did I add it? After the card, after the match move. There we go. So I'll just paste that here. And then now all my other stuff will also have that same effect to it. So here's that other piece of paper with that same coloration. Okay, so you can do the same kind of setup once and then just copy it and paste it into other spots too. Okay, so once you've gone through and you have something for each one of those things, some way that you're animating these things as she's moving her hands in and out and whatever else, then you'll be able to go through and start to finalize what your stuff should look like. Now this is where in the, I closed it probably, yes I did. In the handout where we talk about noise, we talk about blurs, glows, vignette, all that stuff. The glows part we mentioned. Oops. There we go. But we also have to look at the noise that's inside here. So we're imagining this is an actual video. What we don't want this to look like is something we actually composited two things together. We want this item and that item to look like they're actually part of the same thing. So if I go into, let's say, a solid color area here. It's not too solid color. Let's go into the back of the monitor. Come on. There we go. You can see there's a bit of noise happening. You really can't see there's a bit of noise. Let me crank this up a little bit. Nope, the other one. Okay, it might be hard to see on the screen. Yeah, let me go a little bit further. Yeah, so you can see it now. There's definitely some noise that's inside there. That noise is missing from the rest of my artwork, the rest of my stuff that I've added to this. Okay? So typically you want to add noise to your stuff. Now that might seem weird, why would you want to add noise to your stuff? But it makes it look more realistic. Okay? So I'm going to go to, see our stuff is already getting like squished. So you just got to push things up. Another hotkey, hold control, and you can drag a node. And it'll drag everything on that node and above up, or wherever you move it. There we go. All right, so I'm going to go to, let's say, my folder, which is way up here. Whoa. Oh, I still have this cranked up. There we go. And my folder's way over here. There we go. All right. So I'm going to add a noise to this. Not noise, sorry. A grain. And what we're going to see is if I zoom in on my folder and I just turn this off, turn this on, you'll see there's a little bit of a noise pattern that develops on it. Now the idea is that this noise pattern should match the noise pattern of our image. In this video, it's not terribly noisy, so we actually have a little bit of leniency as to how we do this, okay? This actually looks pretty good. If I look at the pixels here and look at the pixels there, It looks like it's probably about the same kind of pattern. You can play with things like the size of the red, the green, and the blue. Same thing with the irregularity and same thing with the intensity. Usually the blue is the most intense. That's why in this case it's 0.85. And then it's also smaller. You can choose different presets. For now, just put a noise pattern on there and just make sure it doesn't look horrible. Okay, as long as we have some kind of noise on there, it'll definitely look better. I think I'm going to go back to that one and take my sizes up a bit more. And then take the intensity down on these. I'm just cutting these in half. There we go. So there is noise on it. It's just cut in half some. Cool. So now I'm just going to copy that noise pattern and just put it on all the other stuff. So here's my book. Just paste it right after that book. Just paste it right there. And just paste that right there. Okay, and now each one of these things will have some sort of noise pattern to it. We may also want to look at the focus. What is in focus? If her hand is crazy blurry, why would this VR thing be crystal clear, right? It should have some sort of softness to it. So the same thing, we would go into that area, way up here. There's where we have our grain. Let's scoot that up. And let's just do a defocus. And if I take this defocus up, are you doing anything? Let's see. Yeah, you're definitely doing something. Yep. All right, it was working. I just don't know why it wasn't very apparent a second ago. Let's pull that back down. Okay, again, we don't want to go crazy with this. That's not how blurry she is. We just want to go a little bit in here. And all this does is really just help kind of blend these elements together so they're not just obvious, like this is a graphic from Illustrator and this is a video that we took and this is something from 3D. We want these things to blend together. We may also want to adjust the coloring. So if I add a grade node in here, that's my way of adjusting what the coloring is on this. Okay, and again, I have the ability to also adjust the alpha channel, RGBA, if I needed to. Okay, if I want to tint it, I just turn these off and I could tint just those colors. Or I could leave these on and open up the color slider and just slide that color. So there's several ways to do a lot of the stuff that we're doing here. I think I'm going to take that alpha down just a little bit. Or maybe not. Oh, RGB. I'd have to do a different slider. I'm not going to do that. Okay, so that's that. Now, once we get to the very, very end of this, we'll have all of our stuff set up. Each piece will animate. Some of them you may want to keep on the screen. Some of them you may want to go off the screen. That's completely fine. We just don't want it to look cluttered while she's moving stuff around. Things just stacked on top and it's just being a mess. At the very end, we may want to do a grade where we do a final color correction. You can do that inside of here, or you can go into After Effects and do a color correction inside of After Effects. Either one is acceptable. It's just a matter of where you want to do it. I may want to go into, let's say, my gain here and just uniformly adjust my coloring in this. So let's say I wanted to give this a little bit more of a cool tone. I'm going to give this a little bit more blue, pull the red and the green down a little bit. And then it's subtle, but you can definitely see the difference in these two different versions of this. I also may want to create a constant, if I can type constant, yes. I'm going to merge the constant into here. I'm going to add a roto right there. And then I'm just going to create that vignette. It's thinking, no. Make sure I'm on Bezier. There we go. Okay, so that's my base shape. I'm going to say invert. And then I'm going to go and grab these. These are the little feathering things that allow this Bezier to be a lot softer than what we just saw. After Effects just got these. It doesn't have the same kind of features, but it's good enough for After Effects, I guess. This is probably a little bit too strong of a vignette, so I'm going to go into my merge and just scale that down some. Okay, so now we have a nice subtle vignette. Maybe I want to add a glow on top of the whole thing. I mean, that might be something cool. Let's just see what happens there. Brightness, take that down. Size, take that down. Tolerance, let's pull that up some. There we go. That's kind of neat. Okay. And then from here, it's the same thing we did on the gaming station. We don't have to do passes. It's obvious what we've done in this case. The only thing we would do is write out the one thing. This is our last node. We would write this out, go into After Effects, make it into a movie. Take a screenshot of our node graph. Okay. Now, just as a bonus, if you wanted to get a bit fancier with your trackers, let me copy this and paste it so we can see. Close that. Oops, that's my transform. I don't want that. Where'd my tracker go? That's my transform card. Transform. I think I moved it way over here. Nope. Transform. No. Oh, there it is. Way down here. Okay. That's me adjusting all my layers, and then it ends up way over there. All right, so all of these trackers, I've mentioned before how we can set this to a transform, match, move, baked, and transform, stabilized, bake, or transform, sorry, match, move, not baked. But we can do a lot more with this too. Right now we've only been playing with the transform. You could also do rotations, and you can also do scales. I'm going to turn this off for a second and then just bake this out. Baked, create, yes. And then I'm just going to delete this one so that I can just replace it with that one. Okay. So now nothing is locked to this. Everything is baked. If I grab multiple ones of these, so we were mentioning before at some point she does this like two-handed thing right here, right there. Those two trackers, I believe, are 3 and 4. Is that right? There's 3. Yep, 3 and 4. Okay. So if I grab 3 and 4, I turn off this one and I add these. And then I do the baked and hit create. What this is going to do is it's going to take those two tracks and make one node that does that thing. Does the rotation, does the scale as one movement. So I'm not going to do the whole chain. I'll just show you what it looks like on this one thing. So I'm just going to merge this into here, just like we've done before. Scoot that over. And I'll add a checkerboard so we can see this thing happen. Drag this to that. Preview it. Okay, so let's rewind. So now if we watch this, that's what happens, okay? So she is moving her hands and it's scaling it in and scaling it out. These just need to be adjusted. So I'm going to add a transform to my checkerboard, scale this down to 0.1, let's say. And then now you can see how it's moving, kind of both of those at the same time. It looks like it's locked to this hand, but that's just where it's positioning itself. If I put it here, give it some rotate so it kind of matches. Oops. Now it's going to appear that it's coming out of both of those hands. Okay? Whenever you move, transform, rotate, don't do it on the match move one. That one's the animated one, don't touch it. Add another transform above it, that's the one that gets all the movements, rotates, and scales. And so you can do stuff like this. If she's supposed to be like making something bigger and then dragging stuff from this, that's where you could utilize that same technique, okay? And that's what's great about Nuke's trackers is even though we have this data, we can combine data from different trackers, put it together, and do different things to the data to get the tracks we need. Some softwares, it's very difficult to do that kind of thing, okay? So that should cover all the bases for this. 2D tracking, matching movements, being able to work between the different softwares, animating the ins and outs, blurs, glows, vignetting, color grading, and organizing all your stuff. Okay? Any questions on it? No? We'll have, what did I hit? There we go. We'll have today, obviously the rest of today, we'll have Wednesday, and then we'll have Monday to start work on this. Depending on where people are at, I may start the next one on Monday. It all depends, okay? Cool? Cool.